trapeze, okay?
Come on.
Don't knock it till you tried it.
No trapeze. I have climbed the whole way to the top of a telephone pole and jumped off. I've done that.
Wow.
Because they said that would be important to my leadership skills. I didn't feel any different at the time, except relieved that I was still alive. Okay, let's begin this week with a brief quote from Ellen Davenport's book, The 5 Principles. The 5 Principles provide steps to lead us from ego to soul, from living unconsciously to living in awareness of truth. Truth is spiritual law. It is creation at our service. I really like that. Ellen has a way with words. It is creation at our service. And I also like the fact that she used the word steps. I had never until this week stopped to think about the 5 principles in terms of moving from one to the other. They've always just been the 5 principles, always there by themselves, carved in stone like the 10 Commandments. But I really, when I started working with it, and you're going to get a taste of it today, I really saw that they really do lead one to the other. And then we'll see where we go from there. So, quick review of what we've done. God in action is using the first 4 principles to using Jesus' term to create the kingdom. It begins with that solid faith in God. And then comes the first challenging leap to recognizing our own personal divine nature, God as us. The third step allows us to understand how creation works. We create consciously or unconsciously through the power of our thoughts and feelings. And the fourth step focuses on our creative power through affirmative prayer and meditation. And we saw that we don't pray asking for something to arrive. We pray knowing that it is within us and we want to bring it forward. So now we take those first 4 principles and put them to work in our human experience. Knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are just the beginning. We must also live the truth we know. This has been an interesting week for me because in addition to doing the work on this, I was part of a conference call in the middle of the week to discuss Unity's next publication, what they're going to publish, one of those booklets they send out to pretty much everybody. And the feedback from the centers has been, we really need something, Unity's take on addiction and recovery. You can see why they included me in the conference call, because I've been somewhere on that spectrum for most of my life. So this suggested to me that the 5 principles lead to the 12 powers, which I had already been working on, or for those of us who share a history of addiction, and I do have the most sneaking suspicion I am not alone in the room, the 12 steps. In fact, the 12th step describes the energy of the 5th principle very well. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. We must also live the truth we know. Now, I agree with Yoda that there is no try, so I would drop that.
You know what? You said?
There is no try. We carry the message and practice the principles. We don't try to, we do it. It's our intention that creates, and we create that together and individually. In terms of the 12 powers, Charles Fillmore wrote that the 12 powers are the faculties that relate us to the earth beneath and the heavens above. They are the tools, he said, for the gradual refinement of the man of flesh into the man of spirit. Now let's not hold Mr. Fillmore to today's standards, because man of flesh and man of spirit bothers more people today than it did at the time. So the fifth principle brings spiritual truth into our mortal experience. And the 12 powers are the tools that provide the bridge that guides us in how to live the truth we know. How to live the truth we know. Our mortal minds love to decide just how we should do that. Mortal mind can sneak into any of these principles when you're not looking. And certainly if I'm now going to live the truth I know, mortal mind steps up and says, oh, let me take charge of that. Let me be in charge, let me run it. It usually involves, I don't know, making lists, setting goals, establishing priorities, all of which can be very helpful when it is all sourced from the 4 principles that preceded this one. We can most effectively use the five principles by quieting mortal mind, relaxing, and allowing our spirit self to guide us forward. We live the truth we know most effectively when we keep it simple. 3 words that were on the walls of every meeting I went to in my early days of recovery. One of those sayings I thought had nothing to do with me whatsoever. Indeed, I didn't think that the 12 steps had anything to do with me either. I've learned along the way. You know who was really great at keeping things simple? Jesus. His earthly ministry seems sometimes to be chaotic, conflicted, and challenging. He was surrounded always by needy people demanding healings, others loudly denouncing him, people who totally misunderstood his message. And yet Jesus moves through it with ease, at least most of the time, allowing Spirit to guide him as he discovers and achieves his spiritual purpose. And it's important to realize, I think, that Jesus did not, in terms of this fifth principle, Jesus did not allow his mortal mind to call the shots. He didn't decide to take on the whole Roman Empire and change everything that was wrong within it. He didn't try to take over the Jewish religion and change everything that was wrong with that. He didn't publish books. He didn't do anything tangible to become famous. It was never a concern of his. I'm sure his mortal mind must have been shrieking on a daily basis. You could make a lot of money at this. You could become very famous. You could end up on Oprah. Who knows? He lived his truth and practiced these principles quietly, gracefully, without concern for the opinions of others. And he encouraged others to do the same. I want to take, just as a quick example, the feeding of the 5,000. It's a story that is in all 4 Gospels, which is very unusual. And you know the situation. There is a crowd, they're in the wilderness, there's nothing to eat, they can't get to a, McDonald's right away or anything. So the disciples come to Jesus and say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And Jesus says, well, let's feed them. The disciples have faith that Jesus could perform a miracle and feed that crowd. But Jesus says, you do it, and let me show you how. He makes sure they understand that he is not claiming any unique power. He is showing them the way in which they can work with their divine nature and make manifest. And it is all about moving through the 12 powers. Faith. Well, I believe Jesus can do this. I don't believe I can do it yet. I may get there, but I believe that Jesus can. That's a start. Imagination. I can imagine that this could be done. I can imagine 5,000 happy, well-fed people. Will. Yeah, I'm willing to do what I can to support that. Understanding. Well, I get it that hungry people need food, and we're a long way from any possibilities. Zeal. I'm eager. to experience the work of Spirit. Order. Get the challenge organized. I love this one. I love Jesus says, tell the people to sit down. Sit down. Because they're milling around, I'm sure, going from one to the other to see if anybody has a candy bar that they can borrow. And Jesus just says, sit down. Let's get this organized. Sit down on the ground. Love, of course, is easy for Jesus, and he was telling them that it would be easy for his disciples as well. I love these people, these crazy, delusioned people looking for support and supply when it's already present within them. I love the work that they're doing. Discernment, I recognize the appearance of lack. I see that it's there. I may know spiritually that it truly doesn't exist, but I discern that there is a sense of lack within this community. Not this community, but his community. Power. I know that I am expressing in this moment the spiritual power that is my true self. I know that I am expressing in this moment the spiritual power that is my true self. Strength. I am willing to do the tangible work that is needed to fully express Spirit. It's not enough to just, as we learned in the fifth principle, it's not enough to sit quietly in a room in the dark and meditate on solving the problems in the world. Sometimes you have to go up and pick up a picket sign or pick up a spade or do something. And I'm willing to do that. I have the strength to do it. Another one of my favorites, elimination. What does Jesus have them do before they move on? Gather up all the leftovers. Don't waste anything. I'm sure they went to feed the kids or to a food kitchen down the road, who knows. But don't just take this power and go willy-nilly with it. Sit down, use the leftovers, make sure that you're covering everything. And then life. People are willing to be amazed and astounded at what he did, and what Jesus says is, get in the boat. Get back in the boat, it's time to move on. Don't stand around or sit around amazed at what you've just done. Get on with it. There will be another opportunity right down the road. Get in the boat, keep moving. So I hope the takeaway this morning will be that living our truth does not necessarily mean changing the world. It can, of course, but only if we are guided by Spirit, not controlled by ego. Yes, we can march and rally, write op-ed pieces, take firm principled stands on issues. We should do that if we are called by Spirit to do that. And if you are willing to do that, I assure you, you will be called by Spirit to do at least some of that. What's most important is that we live our newfound spiritual truth in all our affairs. And if we do that, if we go through Monday just living our principles, we're going to be changing the world. We may not see it happen in front of our eyes, but we're going to be changing the world. We are going to be improving our own life situation. We are going to focus on the truth rather than on the illusion, and that's always a good idea. Let's close with another excerpt from Ellen's book, which I highly recommend, by the way. It's called The 5 Principles, and we don't have a bookstore here anymore, but you can get it online. Spiritual action does not demand marching in the streets, saving the environment, or turning corporations into socially responsible do-gooders, although some people will be guided to express truth in just that way. It means, at base, integrating our divine essence into ordinary, annoying, daily living, with its drudgery, its confusion, its difficult people. How do we apply these principles when we're sick, broke, heartbroken, scared, angry, or apathetic? How do we make choices, day in and day out, in alignment with principle, So we can, bit by bit, create the kingdom of heaven on earth. So to sum up our 5-week focus, I believe that the 5 principles alone will not create the kingdom. They will awaken us to the 12 powers within us that constitute our creation toolkit, to set about the work we're here for, creating the kingdom of heaven in our own lives and contributing hugely to its ultimate expression in all of life. But don't confuse those. Don't get them out of order. Don't think I will only be, as we did in the 70s. There aren't many of us who were alive during the 70s, but marching because we demanded, what we were believing is that my life is a mess, and it won't be if we get out of Vietnam. You know, so let me fix the world, and then once the world is fixed, I'll feel better because of it. That's not the order. Feel better because of yourself. Fix yourself. Use these powers, these principles on yourself and your own daily life. And then you will find out how important you will become to the story of the entire planet. So keep the order in mind. We generally stop for questions. Anybody have anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, what your talk, Unity made, Let Go, Let God, May 22nd said, my prayers are not to change the world, but to change my understanding of it. I remove my attention from the outer world and center on spiritual wisdom. I release worry and any sense of separation, etc. But it was perfect for that. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Is there like a sense in Unity that eventually this world will become a more peaceful, loving kind of place?
We're moving toward the kingdom, there's no question of that. The question is how quickly, how smoothly are we going to do it, or how well are we going to sort of stumble through the wilderness. Stumbling through the wilderness, we're still on our way to the kingdom consciousness. We just don't know it yet. Yeah.
Can you quickly review from 2 weeks ago the 3 phases of prayer?
Yeah. Go over them again. The nature of God, the location of God, and the action. So the presence of God within me expresses as love in this moment. The power of God present in the world expresses as peace throughout the planet. So the three simple. Thanks for asking. Okay. Well, I hope this has been an interesting series for you. Next 2 weeks from now, we're going to indulge one of my favorites, and we're going to spend some time this summer on the Bible.
Cool.
A lot of people still break out in hives at the very thought of it, but we need to be comfortable with that book. Charles Fillmore said it is our basic textbook, so we need to at least open the cover, and we're going to be talking about that through the summer. Blessings.